Hello everyone. Today's case involves two missing young women from Tennessee, and this definitely is a mystery. The mother in this case has been doing her best to try to get the word out about her missing daughter in hopes that it will lead to her daughter being found. And when I came across this case, I knew I needed to tell you all about it. So let's get into the details. 21-year-old Layla Santanello was definitely having a rough time in her life around the time she disappeared from Kingsport, Tennessee. She had a 2-year-old daughter named Nova, which she suffered from postpartum depression after. And on top of that, a few months after Nova was born, her grandfather would end up unaliving himself, which hit her really, really hard. She was very angry. He was one of the closest and most stable people in her life, so when he ended up passing, it was a huge loss for her on top of the PPD. I'm gonna play for you all a video of Layla's mother, Jennifer, talking about that time in their lives.
Leila was angry. And I remember feeling very strongly how I didn't know how to help her. My grief was so heavy. I didn't know how to carry hers too. I did my best. I helped with Nova Grace as much as I could and gave her as much space as I could, but I still regret being so trapped in my own darkness that I wasn't really helping her process.
In June of 2023, Layla was actually living with her boyfriend at his parents' house. Now, this boyfriend has never been publicly named, but from what I've seen from Layla's Facebook, she's engaged to a Michael on there, so I'm assuming it is this Michael guy. And according to Layla's stepmother, Brittany, around this time in her life, she was also suffering from a fentanyl addiction. I also seen that she had lost custody of her daughter and her mother and grandmother had partial temporary custody of her. But from what I did see, Layla was still very active in her daughter's life. She was still very active in her family's lives, but things were definitely not going in the right direction. And I've covered many cases of women who are either missing or have been murdered who were addicts or worked the streets. And I always want to make it a point in these videos to say that these are people. No matter what they are struggling with in life, they are people and they deserve to be talked about just as much as anyone else. And Layla in this case and the other one we're going to be speaking about a little bit after, they were both so young. They had gone through quite a bit in their lives, it seems like, and they needed help. And just because of the things that were going on in their lives around the time that they disappeared, I do not think that they deserve to be talked down about. I don't think they deserve to have their cases not looked into as deeply as other cases. This is a 21-year-old young woman and new mother who was having a very rough time, it seems, and she made some choices and started hanging out with people maybe she shouldn't have, but she also deserves a chance to come home and live her life. She has a daughter waiting for her at home, and I just wanted to say this right off the bat because there are many times that these cases don't get covered as thoroughly as they should and talked about as much as they should just because of the job that the person may be doing at the time or the things that they may be associating themselves with. But at the end of the day, these are people. And they all deserve the right to have their cases talked about in the same way. Just because she was struggling at this point in her life, it doesn't mean she doesn't deserve to be found as well. And as I said, it didn't seem like Layla was hanging out with the best of people around this time in her life. Her family has also said that she began to get more withdrawn and isolating herself more often right before she went missing. But Layla has a family that loves her. She has a young daughter who is missing her mother. And I really, really hope that spreading the word on her case can bring her home. I also think it's very important to note that Layla was a very small young woman. She stands 4'10" and around 115 pounds. So I think that's very important to keep in mind when we get into the theories. Now let's talk about more about what would end up happening because the details in this case are kind of all over the place. They're slowly more and more coming out. Things are getting pieced together more and more. But as I said, Layla was isolating herself. She was very withdrawn. So it doesn't seem like she was telling everyone about everything she was doing. And in the few days before she went missing, the details are very piecey, I will say. And it really feels like we don't have all the information. So on June 23rd of 2023, Layla and her boyfriend would end up getting into an argument. We don't know what this argument was about. We don't know to what extent this argument happened, but what we do know is that Layla would end up leaving the home. And as far as we know, she fled the home without her shoes, without her wallet, without her phone, without a purse, without anything. After this, some very strange things would begin to happen. The next night, which was June 24th, which was a Saturday, Layla's mother Jennifer would end up receiving a message from Layla's Facebook. However, it wasn't Layla sending her the message. It was actually her boyfriend. And I'm just gonna call her boyfriend Michael from here on out, and if I am incorrect, let me know down below and please correct me. So Michael is on his girlfriend's Facebook account messaging her mother asking if she knows where Layla is, if Layla is in jail, if Layla's in the hospital, because he claims he can't find Layla. So at this point, Jennifer began to get worried and she started to try to ask Michael questions, but he ignored her from there on. So she began to call around to hospitals, she began to call around to the jails, she called around to friends trying to figure out where Layla was, because now she's wondering, where's my daughter? Because the boyfriend she lives with doesn't know where she is, so something may be up. Later that night, however, Layla would end up getting access to her Facebook account and she would end up responding to her mother. And it's assumed that she ended up seeing these messages that her boyfriend had sent her mother, so she was wanting to let her mother know that she was fine. And this conversation was along the lines of saying, I'm fine, Mom. I've been with a friend. I don't have a phone to text or call. I'm using someone else's. So in the morning, Jennifer ended up seeing this message and responding, okay, I love you. As you can see, she asked her like why he thought she was in jail, and she just said like she didn't know. But in the end, Layla would end up responding saying, I love you so much more. Now, according to Jennifer, police would later track the IP address of the phone that Layla was using at this point in time, and they were able to confirm that Layla was at that home at that period of time using that person's phone. Because there has been a lot of speculation if it was even Layla responding to her mother at this point, or if it was someone else, or if it was still the boyfriend. But as far as I've seen, Jennifer has confirmed that police confirmed to her that it was in fact Layla. Now, I want to talk about this text conversation for a moment because I have done a lot of research of how people are feeling about this text conversation and the whole situation in general. And from what I've seen, there has been speculation if Layla was hanging out with the wrong people and she was involving herself with the wrong crowd, that possibly her boyfriend knew some things that her family didn't. And that is why he was asking if she was possibly in jail or in the hospital. Because honestly, if my husband or even like one of my siblings didn't show up somewhere and I couldn't find them, my first thought wouldn't be to check if they were in jail. So why was it his? And as I was reading Layla's Facebook, I really did feel like I was beginning to get to know her a little better. Because it's really hard when you're doing some of these cases because all you really have are what the articles are saying, what the police are saying, and then you get snippets of what the family is saying, but you obviously don't normally hear directly from the person that is missing. But in this case, when I looked at Layla's Facebook, I ended up seeing she had a lot of posts on there where she was venting about how she was feeling. And there was one post in particular that I wanted to talk to you all about because I think it's important to understand what was happening in Layla's life and the state of mind she may have been in within the year of her disappearance. So I found this post from September of 2022, which was less than a year before she went missing. And I really do think it paints a picture of how she was feeling. And it seems like this was the point in time in her life when things started to take a turn. So the post reads, and I quote, I'm so burnt out from family's BS that I'm at the point of saying screw it and move to a whole new state with my own little family and leave everyone and everything behind me and never look back, get a fresh start with a new home, new people, new everything, get my financial shit straight and my life back together for my own little family and maybe make it bigger. I'm tired of being pointed out to be the odd one out of the bunch. I'm tired of being put down by my own family. I'm just burnt out. The fire in me is drowned by 100 gallons of water. When my pop passed, I didn't realize how much he protected me from my own family, people that I truly loved, protected, and been there for my weakest moments no matter what. I'm at one of my weakest moments right now, and yes, I have asked for help, but that's what humans do when they're in a dark moment. I finally realized that the only one who noticed before I did, actually cared and actually liked and loved me and wanted to help without any hesitation was my grandfather. And now that he's gone, all of those things are gone with him, including most of my heart and who I was when he was with me. I wish I could talk to him one more time, hug him one more time, make him dinner one more time, and do his routine with him one more time. I know I won't be able to do any of those things again, but I do know that he would want me to do the same for my baby and my man. The point is, I realized that after 20 years that he was literally my savior and the rest of my family are nothing but bullies. Also that they might have love for me, but they don't like me and they don't care like he did. But the biggest lesson he taught me to do was to do what he did for me for my family. I will never give up on him or my man or my children, and that's how I will always pay him back for all that he's done for me. I love you, Pop, and I always will. End quote. Now, I didn't read that post because I want to say anything negative about Layla's family, because they are fighting their hardest right now, and they have been fighting for months and months and months to figure out what happened to their loved one. But clearly Layla's life had a lot of issues, just as all of ours do. She felt like no one cared about her. She felt like she was the odd one out all of the time. And maybe that had to do with her PPD and mixed with being depressed over her grandfather dying. There are a lot of things. And I'm not saying that any of that is fact, because feelings aren't fact. Their feelings, and that is how she was feeling. And when you mix feeling like you have no one to talk to, no one to turn to, with drugs and being friends with the wrong people, bad things can happen, and clearly something bad did happen. I also think people could look at that statement and think that she may want to run away, and that is the farthest thought from my mind. I do not believe one bit that Layla would have ran away in this case. I really do not believe that she did. And her family doesn't believe that either. There's no way that she would have left her daughter. And it's apparent to me that she had a lot of people in her life that truly did love her. But whatever was going on with her, she felt like they did not. Another story that I ended up seeing about Leila was a story that Jennifer talked about. And she was talking about a point of time when Nova was a little baby and Leila had started going back to work. And it seems like her mother and grandmother would split the time when they would take her to work. And the times when Leila's grandmother would end up taking her to work, she would come there and she would basically help Leila out a lot. She would feed the baby and make lunch and like do all these extra things for Leila. But her mother didn't have the time to do those things like her grandmother did, because her mother still had, younger children as well that she needed to take care of. She had errands to run and she was very busy. So the times when she would be able to go and pick Leila up and take her to work, she didn't have the extra time to, go above and beyond and do extra things for Leila. And that seemed to strike a nerve in her. She seemed to kind of throw that back on her mother's face, that her mother wasn't doing the things for her that her grandmother would do. And it seemed to really upset Jennifer and make her feel guilty at the end of the day that she wasn't able to do for Leila what she felt she may have needed to. And I'll have her TikTok account linked down below so you can go and watch these videos for yourself as well. Jennifer has been very vulnerable online, talking about their family and Leila and just situations that leading up to it she thinks about a lot. And here's the thing. When you're younger, like Leila was, because she was, I think around 19 years old or so when she had her daughter, she was still a teenager, she's a young adult. And when you're that young, you really don't see the full picture in life. I feel like you can be more selfish about situations. And I'm sure Leila wasn't thinking about the big picture at that point in time, especially considering everything she was going through with her mental health. So I could see how she would lash out at her mother and why she would take it out on her mother in that way. But I feel like once you get older and you look at things in hindsight, I feel like Leila would have realized that, her mother was just doing her best. Jennifer was doing her best in this situation. And I don't think Jennifer should beat herself up about stuff like that. I think the older you get, you realize that other people have things going on too. It's not all about you. You'll make it through and you're able to be more responsible for yourself. People can't always be there for you in certain ways, in certain situations. They have other things going on as well. And that's just life. But I think talking about all of this stuff and getting a deeper perspective of what was happening in Leila's life will really make us understand the situation, because I'm sure almost all of us could relate to Leila's situation in one way or another. Even if you didn't have a child when you were younger, even if you weren't dealing with serious mental health problems like she was, I'm sure we've all made friends with the wrong people at certain parts in our lives, or made wrong decisions, or gone to a party that maybe we shouldn't have, or hung out with someone that took us to a place that when you look back on, you think, yeah, maybe I should not have been friends with these people. That was very dangerous. Or even simply just being mad at your parents for irrelevant reasons that you realize when you get older were probably pretty dumb, and that your parents didn't deserve you being angry at them for. And that's why, if I'm able to, with these cases, I like to go deeper and talk about the more nitty-gritty of the person's life, because it can make you connect with them. And I think if you can connect with someone, you can feel compassion, it'll cause you to want to talk about their story more, share their case, you'll feel a connection to it. So I am very glad that Jennifer has been so open about her and her daughter's life and what was going on. But let's get even deeper. Now, as I said, Leila's boyfriend wasn't really talked about in any of the articles. No one seems to want to whisper his name for some reason anywhere online, but I'm doing it right now. And again, as far as I've seen, his name is Michael. And I think it's important to talk about her boyfriend, because if this is the boyfriend that everyone's talking about, he seemed to have been a huge part of her life, to the point that they were engaged on Facebook. And according to Leila's many posts about him over the years, she'd known Michael since they were in 3rd grade, and they'd grown up together over the last 14 years or so. She did this one post on his birthday that read, and I quote, "You're my one and only, I promise. I'm so grateful to call you mine, and Nova's so grateful to call you her dad. Even though it's been really rough on us lately, we can't seem to catch a break. I want to forget all the negativity today and focus on all the positive things," end quote. So it's just really strange to me that if she was so close to Michael, that she had known him for most of her life, why isn't he being talked about more? And why isn't he helping search for her is another thing that's very strange to me. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen him make any posts. I haven't seen him do any interviews or talk about her at all on social media or on the news, considering they'd been together for years and years and years, and they'd known each other for like 3/4 of their lives, and they seemed to be thick as thieves. But clearly things were getting rocky at the end there if she was running out of the home without her shoes, without her belongings. But that's just very strange to me that there's just radio silence on his end. And I did see that someone ended up asking Jennifer on her TikTok about him, and it just seems like no one wants to mention his name. No one wants to talk about him at all. And it seems that despite him being so close with Leila and being Nova's father, that he doesn't seem to really be around, which is just really weird. And it leads me to wonder if there are certain substances at play here then. There's just something going on that's deeper and darker in this case, in my opinion. There's just layers to it that aren't really being talked about. And I say that this case just keeps getting deeper and darker and more twisted because it would start getting out of hand when friends of Leila's friends, I'm going to say that loosely because it doesn't seem like any of these people were truly her friends, but they began allegedly coming out and saying that Leila had actually been cheating on her boyfriend, having an affair with someone else. And according to them, he ended up finding out, and that's why they had this big fight, and that's why she fled the home without any shoes, without any of her belongings, phone, purse, nothing. Now, after that, it seems like Leila ended up staying at a friend's house, which would probably be the friend's house that she was texting her mother from, that the police ended up, figuring out she was there at. And as far as these friends have said, one of the people at this home was this potential love interest. Now, again, this information seems to possibly not be true, but then it also begs the question, why are all these people making up these stories and talking so badly about Leila, that she was cheating on her boyfriend and running off to this guy's house and just doing, what is going on here? And I will tell you, this case just keeps getting more and more confusing. Now, the thing is, police do allegedly know where Leila was staying at this point in time. Again, probably because they pinged the IP address and figured it out like that, but they're not disclosing any of that information at this point in time of whose house she was staying at, which friends, and it seems like the family doesn't even know. Like, the police aren't telling anyone anything. What we do know, however, is that the next day on June 25th, Leila would end up checking in to the AmeriCourt Hotel on American Way, and this is around the area she would last be seen. By June 26th, however, guests at the motel would end up reporting Leila going door to door at the motel, and they said that she looked like she was in a state of distress, but when anyone tried to help her, tried to offer her a phone to use or a ride home or somewhere else, she declined any help from strangers. She would allegedly tell a friend, and I quote, "I have to take care of something," end quote. However, in the late morning, there ended up being an altercation between Leila and an unknown individual, and the motel ended up threatening to evict her from it. Now, another thing that I'm really confused on is this AmeriCourt Hotel, because as far as we know, Leila ran out of her boyfriend's parents' home without anything. So how was she able to rent a motel, or was she staying with a friend at the motel, like staying in a friend's room there? Now, after this altercation took place, it said that around midday, Leila ended up walking into a nearby wooded area, and she ended up spending the night in the forest. Which really begs the question, if she had a motel she was staying at, if she had family to call and stay with, why was she sleeping in the woods? It begs the question, was she on some sort of substance? It begs the question, was she so scared of whoever she just had an altercation with that she was trying to hide? But then it makes you wonder, why didn't she just call her mother to come pick her up, or a family member or a friend or someone that she could stay with? Why would you sleep in the woods? By now, it was June 26th, which was a Monday, and Michael ended up reaching out to Jennifer again through Layla's Facebook account. And he was now saying that he still couldn't find Layla and that he was worried. The messages read, and I quote, "Jen, I don't know if you got the lightest idea of where Layla is at. I haven't heard shit from her, nor has anyone since yesterday around 4 a.m. Like something is really up. All I know is she's supposed to be with a redacted or something. I don't know if it's her ex redacted. I don't know of any more redacted. I've called jails, I've called hospitals. Like I have no idea. Only thing she said to me at 4 a.m. yesterday was," and I quote, "Hey baby, I'm at redacted," end quote. And I went over there. Redacted said that Layla said she's going to walk out and smoke, and said redacted never seen or heard from her again either, end quote. Now, I don't know what the redacteds mean because this text has been posted with full redacted. I don't know if they're people's names. I don't know if he was saying, I don't want to spread rumors, but if it's not people's names, it makes sense, in my opinion, to the situation that it may be a dealer and they just don't want to put that out there. And they also don't want to expose, a small town dealer's name because that could be dangerous. It just makes sense though if it said she's supposed to be with a dealer or something. I don't know if it's her ex-dealer anymore. I don't know any more dealers. It just doesn't make sense that it would be a name in that spot if it was like she's supposed to be with Jake or something. I don't know if it's her ex-boyfriend. I don't know any more boyfriends. I don't know. Like that just doesn't make sense or something. You know what I mean? But again, I don't know. It's redacted. It just makes the most sense in that context, in my opinion, but please don't take that as truth. Trying to make sense of this all. Either way, something was definitely up. However, at this point, Jennifer said that she felt like she was being manipulated by Michael and that it felt like he was only trying to find Layla for selfish reasons, especially if this was a potentially toxic relationship, especially if they fought to the point where she fled the home without any belongings or shoes. And it would make sense that Jennifer felt like if this was the situation, that if this was somewhat toxic, that they maybe just needed some time away from each other, especially since they were so young and they'd known each other for so long. They grew up together, and if there was certain situations and substances at play there, it could cause more fights. It could cause situations that maybe they should be separated from each other. So I could fully understand Jennifer not believing that, he didn't know where she was and he was just trying to find her to talk to her or get back together or whatever the fight may go on. Again, we don't really know this person. We don't know the dynamics. But at the same time, when I do read that text message, even with the context of thinking that he might be just trying to find her for selfish reasons, it does make me wonder if he actually didn't know where she was and he actually was worried, especially since if it's true, he said he had heard from her at 4 a.m. and that she said she was going to so-and-so's place. And then when he got in contact with that person, they said she walked out and disappeared. So is it possible that he isn't lying? I think there may be a possibility, but again, Jennifer knows more about the relationship and situation. So if she felt like that, I would be inclined to believe that there was something else going on there. And I would love to know more about these dynamics. However, it seems like the boyfriend isn't really being spoken about. It's tight-lipped, as I said. So I don't know. So I said at this point, Jennifer's not really believing that the boyfriend has good intentions. And she's not fully believing that her daughter may actually be missing at this point. It seems like there was a thought that maybe Layla wasn't messaging her back on Facebook, not only because she didn't have a phone to, but maybe because she didn't want her boyfriend to see the messages and know where she was, because he clearly had access to her Facebook. So if she was messaging her mother being like, hey, I'm here, I'm there, the boyfriend would immediately know where she actually was. So at this point, Jennifer was basically just waiting for Layla to eventually message her, call her, and vent to her about what was going on like she normally would. But that call never came. And at this point, Jennifer ended up calling Layla's father, who she was divorced from. I think he lives in New Jersey as far as I've seen, so he's not even in the state. And she wanted to call him and talk to him about what they should do in this situation. And it seems like the father and stepmother really wanted to call the police, but Jennifer wanted to just wait another night. She wanted to give Layla the benefit of the doubt that she was going to eventually contact them. And she just wanted to wait one more night to call the police, just in case Layla, did message. She didn't want to get her daughter in trouble for anything. However, during the night, it seems like the father and stepmother were too antsy. They couldn't sleep, and they ended up calling and reporting her missing anyways. Now, beknownst to the family, at this point in time when she was reported missing, Layla was sleeping in a field outside of the AmeriCorps Hotel. She was not technically missing, it seems, at this point. And when Layla ended up waking up in the morning and walking out of that field, warehouse workers that were near the woods ended up saying that they spotted Layla walking across the field. The article reads, and I quote, "There's a warehouse near the woods, and there were approximately 5 employees that were working that day and said that they could see Layla sticking out from a mile away. Based on her paranoia, her panicking, and her being freaked out, it could be that she was running from whoever she spoke to at the motel." End quote. Now, it said that Layla ended up asking someone for a cigarette, but they didn't have a cigarette. And then it said that she took off in the direction of the Kingsport Greenbelt trail. Now, around noon that day, a worker at the Marble Slab Creamery in town ended up finding Layla on the back patio sitting under an umbrella. It's reported that Layla looked disheveled, she looked distressed and distraught, so the worker ended up giving Layla a free ice cream and sitting there and talking to her. As far as I've seen, Layla was able to use a phone at the creamery to call a friend, but this friend wasn't able to pick her up because they were somewhere else. They just weren't able to pick her up. So Layla ended up just telling the employee that she was going to go over to the Five Below, which was just nearby the ice cream shop, and buy herself a pair of shoes. But I don't know how she was going to buy herself a pair of shoes if she didn't have any money on her. That's the thing. I don't know if she had anything on her, because as far as we know, she didn't. But either way, Layla never went and bought shoes, and she was never seen from again after this. And that's how the narrative went for a while, for months actually, until we now have some new updates, because apparently the last spot Layla was seen was not the ice cream shop. Instead, it's now thought that Layla was last seen on June 27th on surveillance footage from outside of a storage facility, which ended up showing a shoeless Layla walking barefoot and heading south towards the Kingsport Greenbelt. But after Layla was seen on this footage, which has not been released at this point in time, no one knows where she went. She just vanished. No one knows where she was heading. No one knows why she walked that way or where she wanted to go. But things would continue to get odder, because 2 weeks after Layla went missing, her mother would end up receiving a Cash App request from Layla's Cash App account asking for money. In the subject line of a request, it said the letters TWLMG. Multiple other requests would begin to come in within the next few minutes with the same strange message, which Jennifer ended up realizing it may stand for "they won't let me go." So she ended up sending Layla's Cash App $1 with a message asking if she was okay. Now, Jennifer would end up contacting the police with this information of the situation where she's receiving these Cash App messages with these weird requests, and just, it was odd. She started to believe that maybe there was a possibility that Layla was being held hostage somewhere. So Jennifer ended up asking the requester on this Cash App some more specific questions to try to weed out if this was Layla or not messaging her, saying, and I quote, "At some point I started asking, what's your brother's name? What's your baby brother's birthday?" and other specific questions like that only she would know. But this person was just ignoring them. And I thought, no, something's wrong here. But then periodically throughout the next several weeks, they kept coming in. And then the requests got more and more threatening. End quote. Like this one request that Jennifer would end up receiving for $95 that read, and I quote, "15 minutes or you'll find her in pieces." End quote. Which, if you actually read these messages, they are not spelled correctly. Whoever was sending these messages, they did not know proper spelling. They did not know proper grammar. It's a bit of a mess. Now, this caused Jennifer to end up sending this requester more $1 messages back asking questions like, is she okay? Is Layla alive? And in the end, Jennifer ended up sending quite a bit of money because she had to send $1 every time she wanted to ask a question or respond to the requester. But who was on the other end if it wasn't Layla? Well, police would end up being able to access the account, and they would end up determining from, I'm sure, IPs and phone pings and all of the other technology that they have, that it was actually friends of Layla's that had access to her Cash App account some way, somehow, and were essentially scamming her mother into sending the money, which led me to wonder so many questions, including how did they gain access to her Cash App? As far as I've seen, they didn't have her phone because police would end up going and searching the home of these friends, and Layla was not there. They didn't find her phone. They didn't find anything of hers. And on top of that, why aren't these friends' names out there to the public? This is what I don't understand in this case. And why aren't these friends being charged with, I don't know, extortion or something? There has to be some kind of charge that they could get for scamming a mother out of money on an account that's not even theirs. And on top of that, why aren't these people's names being put out there? People get exposed for things on the internet for way lesser crimes and situations. These people are disgusting. If they are scamming a grieving mother whose daughter is missing using her own daughter's Cash App, like, what the actual fuck? And I just think it's ridiculous that they're being protected for whatever reason or another. These people's faces and their names should be out there. Like, they are bad people. Where are the charges? And as far as we know, these people that had Layla's Cash App also weren't the friends that Layla was staying with right before she went missing. So clearly, if these were the friends that Layla was associating herself with, they are not good people. You know, friends would not do that to someone's family. Now, things would end up taking a turn on October 15th when 19-year-old Hollynn Snapp would last be seen in the area of Belridge Drive. However, Hollynn hadn't spoken to her parents since October 5th, which was 10 days prior, which they said was very unlike her. Now, in Hollynn's case, she had actually been adopted by a family when she was around 10 years old, and her adopted mother, Heather, has been very open about their situation as well. They've said that Hollynn was suffering from addiction and mental health issues, and that she had the mental capacity of around a 9 or 10-year-old. So her disappearance is also very concerning because she would be a lot more trusting than a normal 19-year-old.
Both Snapp and Hollynn's former foster parent, Leslie Hunt, say it's not like her to stop communicating.
It does worry me a little bit more, just knowing how she is and how she's very trusting of people. That's concerning.
Snapp and Hunt filed a police report with the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office on Sunday. Since then, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation issued an endangered young adult alert for Hollynn, increasing the urgency of their search.
We're just following up on tips, conducting interviews. I really don't want to get into kind of what we're doing or where we've been.
Snapp says Hollynn struggles with mental health difficulties, but with few treatment options near her family home in Chuckey, she often had to choose between treatment and being near her family.
My daughter wouldn't be in the situation that she was in if we had been able to access resources in our hometown.
For now, the women are pleading for Hollynn to contact them.
We love you and we miss you very much. And if you can, please just reach out to somebody. You know, we do not feel like it's a situation where she doesn't want to talk to us.
Snapp says she's just as worried as Hunt, but is working to stay strong and keep the search going.
We have to find her. When that is all said and done, I will allow myself to grieve. But right now, I'm ready to fight.
And just like Layla, Hollynn is also said to be a very small, petite young woman. And it turns out that Hollynn and Layla may have also hung out with the same people and the same friend group in the same circles. So there is speculation if Layla and Hollynn did know each other, if there is a possibility, since they did run in the same circles. We also have a picture of her tattoo, which I'll show you. So if she is out there somewhere, she may be able to be identified. But that's all we really know about Hollynn's case. But that is now 2 young women who ran in the same circles, who have similar body types, who are around the same age, that both went missing in this town. November 10th, Layla's mother Jennifer and Hollynn's mother Heather would hold a vigil in the center of town for their 2 missing children. Heather saying, and I quote, "They say it takes a village to raise a child, and I believe it's going to take the community coming together to bring Layla and Hollynn home." End quote. So let's talk a little bit about theories and dive a little deeper into what may have been going on here. As I mentioned, both girls had very similar builds and they were both seemed to be struggling in life, which means that it seems like they were leading higher risk lifestyles at this point in their lives. So there are 2 big theories in this case. Trafficking seems to be a big theory in this case. How do I word this? There are certain demographics of people out there who like younger looking women. Let's put it that way. And because both Hollynn and Layla, they were young. They're, around 19 to 21 years old, but they were both under 5 foot tall. They were both very petite. They were both very young looking. There is definitely a demographic of disgusting individuals out there who would be interested in that look, if you get what I mean. So the thought that Layla was last seen wandering down by this greenbelt, could someone have picked her up or kidnapped her because she did look so young? And the same with Hollynn. I think it's definitely a possibility. And then we have the serial killer theory. And the serial killer theory is a very strong one that's talked about because both of the girls fit a certain MO. Again, they both were around the same size. They were both around the same age. They both were leading higher risk lifestyles if they were on the streets doing drugs and wandering the streets. There are a lot of times when serial killers focus on prostitutes, when they focus on drug addicts, and unfortunately it's just seems to be an MO of a lot of serial killers. And it's just, easier, unfortunately, for serial killers to take advantage of people who are at lower points of life like that. And as scary as it is, this case reminds me quite a bit of the Adam Strong case that I covered, which was a serial killer here near Toronto who ended up kidnapping and murdering a couple young women who were around the same age as these two women, who were also struggling in life in similar ways. You know, they were living out of shelters or, you know, going in and out from their parents' home to shelters and living a more high-risk lifestyle. And Adam Strong ended up kidnapping them and murdering them in his small apartment. And I'm not trying to say that to scare the family members in this case, but it's just where it leads me to wonder if a similar situation could have happened. And I am hoping more than anything that that is not the case. Now, there actually is a third theory, and Layla's family has been very open, as we've talked about tonight, about the idea that Leila was struggling with mental health issues, and they have mentioned the possibility that Leila may have had a psychotic break. Normally, families aren't very open to admitting that, so I do commend the family for being so open about the situation, and I think it's important to talk about because she was suffering with mental health issues, and they have mentioned, you know, around this point in time in someone's life, it's when mental health issues could arise more, and, you know, layer that on with drugs, with everything she was going through, it could have happened. I definitely think it could have, but then it also makes me wonder, why didn't she just go home? The family also believes that she wouldn't have ran away, that she wouldn't have left her daughter. There's always the possibility, and I think it's important to talk about, but it makes me wonder, why hasn't she been found yet? If it was simply, you know, she wandered off and is in a psychosis of some sort. Now, if you want to help in this case and you do live in the area or you've driven through the area around the time that these girls disappeared, the families are asking the public to go over any footage that you may have, whether that be dash cam footage, Ring cameras, surveillance footage, if you own a business, anything from that point in time. It was around the end of June. Layla was last seen wearing a white tank top, black leggings, and no shoes. So if you're going through that footage, that is what you need to look out for. She also had blonde hair with dark roots. Publicly, at this point in time, no suspects or persons of interest have been named in Layla's disappearance or in Hollynn's, and Layla's disappearance is still being investigated as a missing persons case. This is what Jennifer had to say.
I want to remind that person that Leila has a little girl. And whatever might have happened, that little girl is going to need to know someday.
Now, this case leaves me with so many questions. Where are these two girls? What could have happened to them? And why isn't more being done to find them? There are so many weird things going on in Layla's case. It leaves me to wonder so many questions. Like, why was Layla's boyfriend messaging Jennifer from her account? Why didn't he just message her mother from his account? Because he has his own Facebook account. And why was he asking her if Leila was in jail? It also makes me wonder how he gained access to her account. Why was he acting like she was missing if he had just spoken to her in the times before? Why wasn't he just being more open and honest about what was happening, saying, you know, we got into an argument, she ran off, I can't find her. Why is it so cryptid? Why is everything in this case so cryptic? And then it leads me to wonder, what were they really fighting about? Was it because he found out that Leila was cheating on him, or were they fighting over something else? Why were they having such an intense fight that Leila ran out of the home with no shoes and none of her belongings? Most people would put on their shoes and grab their purse and wallet and their phone before leaving somewhere. The fight had to be bad enough, or whatever mental state was going on had to be bad enough that this situation occurred. Then we have all of these so-called friends, these friends that Leila was hanging around with. How did they gain access to her Cash App? How did they get her password for it? Then I have questions about this motel that she was staying at. As far as I've seen, the AmeriCorps Hotel is known for very unsavory characters. There's a lot of drugs that go on around this motel and in this motel. It's just not a good motel. So why was Leila there? Again, there's so many details in this case that are so confusing. Did Leila pay for the motel? Is she the one that checked in? She was going to be the one getting, you know, kicked out because of this altercation that happened, which again, who is this altercation with? But again, how did she get to this motel? Why was she staying there instead of just going home? Was she the one that was paying for the motel, or was there a friend that was staying there with her that was paying for the motel? Who was this friend? Every little piece of information in this case is so cryptic. No names are ever being said. We don't know the nitty-gritty. It's just this basic narrative. And then we get to, why was Leila sleeping in a field? Why was this young woman who had places she could stay, places to be, why didn't she call for help? Why didn't she call someone to pick her up when people offered her phones to use? If she had a motel room to sleep in, why was she in a field? It's just so strange. And again, who was she fighting with at this motel? Did she feel that scared? What was her mental state at this point in time? Was it her mental state, or was it possibly drugs that led her to go sleep in this field, or was she actually terrified of someone? Leila ended up missing her own birthday, and she's been away from her daughter for about 5 to 6 months now, which her family says she would never have done if Leila was safe and able to come home. So clearly something happened to her. She is out there somewhere and not being able to go on her own free will, or unfortunately something more sinister happened. As far as I've seen, more hasn't been done on this case in the authorities' end because there's not enough information at this point to validate any more searches, and because of this lack of information, no one knows where to look to. Donations can't be made to fund searches because there's no specific areas to look in, and it sucks big time that there's not enough information in this case. But I really feel like if we had more information about certain people and individuals that were involved, it could lead to more information coming out. And I do believe if you want to help, and I hope you all will help Jennifer and the families in this case that are involved here, I think the best thing that you can do is by sharing Leila's face, sharing her story, sharing her missing persons flyer. You can share out this video, or you can share out any of Jennifer's content. She has tons of TikToks, tons of videos on her Facebook. Sharing on social media is the best thing that you can do in this day and age. And especially if you live in the area, telling your friends, telling your family members, maybe they know something or can check their cameras then, and maybe they'll find something on their cameras that could help lead to more information and help lead to more searches then, and to the police being able to do more in this case. Cases that involve drugs or people who are in bad situations in their lives aren't as shared out, and I really hope we can change that by talking about these cases more and normalizing this more. There are so many people out there who are in bad situations, and it doesn't mean that their stories and their cases shouldn't be shared. Leila was 20 years old when she went missing. She's now 21. She is a very young woman. She just hit her 20s. She has a young daughter. She has a family who misses her and that wants to find her. And the same with Hollynn. And these families deserve answers. Nova deserves to grow up and know what happened to her mother, and to have her mother back in her life if it is possible. And if something did happen to Leila or to Hollynn, that means there's someone bad out there that is still walking the streets, and they need to be taken off the streets. So I hope you all will share any information and any content that you find on these stories, and hopefully we can help solve this case together. As I said, Leila's mother, Jennifer, has been very active on social media and very vulnerable, sharing her story and Leila's story. I'll have all of her socials linked down below so that you can go and help support her and her cause. As I said, the greatest thing we can do right now is help by sharing this story. As always, if any more information comes out in this case, I will update you all on it. I'm really hoping that this one has a positive ending. And as always, if you have any other information that I didn't include in this video, or if there was a detail I'm potentially incorrect about, let's have a full conversation down below about that. I always want to make sure the information I'm putting out there is correct, and I think the best thing we can do is have a conversation down below. So let's chat. So I'll be down there with you all. Let's chat. My heart goes out to Leila's family and Jennifer, who is out there every day fighting for her daughter to be found. And I hope you all stay safe out there. Lock your windows and doors, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.